Greatness in the Everyday. Lessons from my neighbor, Thomas Brodhead. Were you to have seen Thomas Brodhead in line at the grocery store, you likely wouldn't have looked twice. This unassuming man, who had been my family's next-door neighbor for a decade and a half, was quiet and kept to himself, and by multiple metrics, he exemplified greatness. Our first conversation took place over a year after he moved in. Yes, I should have been a better neighbor and welcomed him sooner, but frankly, he was a little weird. He kept strange hours. Sometimes, if I were awake in the early hours, I'd see him returning from a midnight walk, and at first he wasn't keen to make eye contact or wave from his deck. One day, we both happened to be in our backyards in the daylight, again, after over a year of being neighbors, and we struck up a little conversation. We live in Smyrna, so you pay attention when someone tells you that they work in the arts. He told me that he worked in music publishing as a typesetter, so I asked the most logical question I could compose. Do you use Sibelius or Finale? He replied that he used Score, a program I'd never heard of, and invited me over to see how it worked. I arrived a few minutes later and observed what appeared to be the beta test of the old Asteroids video game on his computer monitor. Just a bunch of lines and squiggles. I thought to myself that I must be living next to the world's worst typesetter. He punched away on his keyboard, and the printer beside me came to life. From the printer emerged the most beautiful musical score I'd ever seen. Everything was spaced to perfection. The proportions between the staff, the note heads, and the accidentals were a visual wonder. Greatness. I soon learned that my new-ish neighbor was an incredible typesetter, composer, and recognized Charles Ives scholar. Charles Ives, the Pulitzer Prize-winning, eminent American composer of the last century. A graduate of Oberlin, Tom was often called upon to write program notes for the Cleveland Orchestra when that world-class ensemble performed an Ives work. As a capstone to this part of Tom's story, he was consolidating and editing the Ives Fourth Symphony, a mammoth work that requires multiple conductors to perform. Tom created new scholarly and performance editions of that work and toured the globe, advising some of the world's greatest orchestras and conductors on performance practices. Again, greatness. After completing his magnum opus, he turned to painting and caring for his cat, Charlie. His cat is a misnomer, as Charlie seemed to hold the deed to the entire neighborhood, and he merely allowed Tom to house him most evenings. I'm not a visual artist, and am not qualified in any way to comment on Tom's artistic creations other than to say that to me, his art was a pure reflection of himself. Witty, snarky, humorous, and complicated, his art often made me laugh and think deeply about the subject. By the way, if you're paying attention, that's now at least 3 careers in which my friend Tom exhibited greatness. We miss Tom. My whole family does. We were incredibly fortunate to live next door to an accomplished artist and great person. But bitter feelings soon turn into sweet memories. Tom reminds me of the quiet, unassuming folks who do great things in this world, folks you'd never notice in line at Kroger. And I have to believe that if there's one Tom, there are many, and that makes me smile. Goodbye, friend. My family and I will never forget you.